All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to respect everyone's time again. Thank you very much for joining in. I hope everyone's new year is off to a great start. I know we have there's some of our friends and colleagues on the West Coast are going through a lot right now with the fires out there. So thoughts and prayers with everyone in California dealing with that. Um, but wanted to again welcome everyone, congratulate everyone for investing their time. It's that time of year. I think it's a perfect time of year that we kind of ramp up for what our goals are, get our business plans and strategic action plans, probably more importantly, in place. Um, Really kind of like the thought process that went into this book. It's Big Goals: The Science of Setting Them, Achieving Them, and Creating Your Best Life by Caroline Adams Miller. I like to break things into three parts. So for this one, I think we start off, and I always also like to think of things from a mindset, skill set, tool set perspective. But I think for the way she's constructed the book, she puts together the psychology and the science about goal setting. Why she's putting out the information that she is within that, and then giving the tools, framework, and resources to help construct your best, the best opportunity for you to fulfill your goals. So, and then the last part, what we'll do, this is a 5 week sort of book club that we put together here. Week one, we have the introduction in part one. So the science of goal setting was a little slow, sort of for me, the first part of the book, just getting sort of the why and how she constructed the framework for the book. But then once you kind of get into it in chapter two, and then when she starts talking about the bridge and the foundation for it, I think it definitely picks up, especially from a fundamental standpoint. So again, it's totally interactive. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to dive into the book and get started. Has everyone started reading it? Has anyone started reading it? Where are we kind of at on the journey with the book itself? Anybody?
I've started reading it. I mean, I didn't get very far, to be quite honest, just maybe the intro in the first chapter,
Yeah,
but it was a good um it was enlightening. I'm not into it yet to really give an overview.
sure. Yeah, Marie looks like she's on chapter three too. There, yeah, and like I said, there's some interesting things because I think she sort of deconstructs some of the things we all think about on goal setting. What goals are, and some of the information that comes along with that. I really like that she does kind of go back to goal setting theory um, and what that looks like. I think that's Edward Locke in the 1960s put that forth to begin with. But like I said, once you start getting into the acronym, when she starts talking about bridge, I think it sort of picks up and it kind of gets more into the meat and potatoes about it. So I really, kind of like as it got into, like I said, on part two, I really kind of it picked up for me a little bit there.
I
Um,
enjoyed the introduction, Greg, with some of the terms that whether she made them they're her terms or the faux excellence term and the damage that the younger generation while in school and being raised in this um, self-esteem parenting movement um, helps me to relate a little bit more with the younger generation because I wasn't raised in that generation. My younger than me is raising another generation. And I think that helped me with some realization and potential empathy that I have with some of my younger clients as I work with them.
Yeah, for sure. And she definitely sort of overturns the apple cart on some of the things. You know, and it is kind of funny when you look at it from her perspective, and she clearly put a lot of research and time and thought into the book. There's so much information out there, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, on goal setting and the self-help movement. And it really, you start to think, all right, I'm going to not take everything, sort of as gospel or truth, and want to parse through what really is work and what's out there just being commercialized for the sake of selling, this sort of self-help goal setting kind of paradigm.
Yeah, she
that,
referred to that disease of despair, and that really hit home in a networking group that I'm in with over the last 2 or 3 years, all of our industries, for the most part, being affected negatively. There has been a cloud over multiple industries to not feel so alone as a realtor in an industry that was and continues to be negatively affected by these high interest rates.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of challenging headwinds for us for sure. And this is we're going on, we're going into our third year. We're past 8 quarters of some challenging markets. All real estate's hyper local. Local, right? So some markets are faring better than others, and there's definitely some different challenges in different markets. But we can, I think, from across the board, with the exception of a few pockets, inventory continues to be a problem in a lot of markets. The interest rates, the fact that they went up so quickly in such a short amount of time, it is challenging. Especially where they were at. It would have been different if we hadn't been lulled into the 2.5-3% interest rates, and you've got a lot of the country that the demographic is sort of stuck into those golden handcuffs, as they like to say, and we're having a hard time unlocking inventory across the board. So, yeah, it's always good, and I love the fact that she's talking about the psychology of goal setting, which is to me always important. It goes back to that, the first and foremost thing that you want to do, whatever you want to do, is have the right mindset. And I always go back. I think Zig Ziglar said, motivation is like bathing, right? You just don't do it once. You have to do it every day. You have to kind of reinforce those positive aspects of why you're doing what you want to do. And, also sort of piggybacking on that or dovetailing, she talks about the psychology of it. And the one thing that I loved, and I think anecdotally, I can say from being, having a team, being in real estate for the past 20 years, opening up a brokerage, one of the common denominators that I see with successful agents is sort of this sense of grit and intestinal fortitude. She talks about Angela Duckworth's TED Talk a little bit. If you haven't checked out Angela Duckworth, it's worth, Google her videos and a little bit on grit. And for me, intestinal fortitude, because we know, I think most of us, all of us probably on this call are independent contractors. We're all independent business owners. And even dealing with, I talked to my wife owns a small salon, and she gets super frustrated about, she's not a tax professional. She's not like a bookkeeper or managing that. And she gets super frustrated with the back office portion of running a hair salon. She has to outsource some of that stuff, rely on other people to help her with that, systems or people. And it just gets super frustrating. And, I've seen within her just the ability to kind of like stick to it, not kind of give up on some of those things that might not be in her wheelhouse per se. But grit and intestinal fortitude when it comes to achieving goals is paramount, in my opinion, because the excitement of things wears off. Same thing with like, good ideas. Good ideas come all the time, right? It's implementation and taking action and converting those ideas into actionable steps. That's super important. But again, what drives all of that is being able to sort of stay on task over time consistently. And that comes with like that grit or intestinal fortitude, because there's always ups and downs in our profession, in any business. So yeah, I agree with you. She talks a little bit about stretch goals. I think is a good idea. I've kind of gotten away from, I used to talk about stretch goals a lot before, and I've sort of gotten out of the habit of talking about stretch goals, but it reignited something in me and remembered, why when I used to do business planning, we had stretch goals, because if you set yourself maybe a super realistic, achievable goal, it's human nature that we're going to be sidelined on various things. We're not going to be able to quite meet all of our expectations on a day-to-day or weekly basis. And when you have those stretch goals, even if you come up a little bit short, you're going to really hit, a goal that's worth achieving. So it's something that I'm going to be reintroducing into sort of our business planning, my business planning and my strat plan is some stretch goals too, which I've kind of gotten away from. So I was glad that came back out. Yeah, I mean, talking about reframing challenges as opportunities, we go back to that mindset, and it's true. And that talks a little bit about grit and being able to stay on task over time. These things, I know it's ubiquitous within our industry. We say you have to get comfortable, being uncomfortable or stretching yourself and things that you don't necessarily want to do. But if you're able to reframe, the lens through which you're looking at things and reframe challenge or obstacles as opportunities, I think it helps quite a bit. And she goes into and talks a lot about learning goals versus production goals, and intrinsic goals versus extrinsic goals. I don't know why that word's so hard for me to say, but purpose-driven goals as opposed to reward-driven goals. So I think we talk a little bit about that as we go on too, because you can have these parallel sets of goals. I think we should all have some learning goals and expectations. I mean, we're always our greatest asset in business and life and real estate. And the more you can expand your bandwidth, the more you can learn on whether you're niche marketing or you're working with a particular demographic. The more you can learn about that, the more you can become an expert. I hesitate to use the word expert, but the more you can inform yourself on that subject matter, the more confident you're going to be. People are going to notice that. It's going to be easier for you to avail yourself in different opportunities. So learning goals intrinsically avail you to other opportunities. So you're broadening your bandwidth. I think that's always great. So along with those learning goals, then we have to have those productivity goals, right? And that's where she talks a little bit about maybe how SMART goals aren't always, the term SMART as an acronym has gotten kind of clouded a little bit. And we just have to redefine when we're talking about our goals and setting our goals, make sure that we're pretty explicit for what they're talking about, and then the goals have to be very clearly defined. We have to have clarity within them. So anything else from anybody as they're starting the journey down this path, or where's everybody at with their goals? I have a business plan that I put together. I always sort of start my business planning in November and then really gear up over the holidays because I feel like I have some downtime. And then right now I'm in the process of really drilling down on it and redefining it and setting my calendar for the next year. But where's everybody at with that process? Does anybody have a goal in mind for this year? Or what are some of the examples of some goals that you are setting for yourself? Sort of safe space.
Haven't. I'm sorry, was somebody else going? Was that me?
Yeah,
It's
go
all
ahead.
you.
Sorry. Okay, so I have not actually done my full 2025 business plan. It's been on the calendar, but for some reason I haven't actually done it. But what I have been following since probably December, and I feel like it's kind of helping me a lot, is I basically have like a morning routine now, and I've been really good at following it. And I think by following it, it's kind of helped me to kind of accomplish what I know in my head are my goals, even though I haven't technically put them on paper yet. So
Yeah.
that, and now, like, even with that morning goals, my morning daily routine, I'm looking at it every night. In the morning, I write down two, I guess, lists. I write down, my to-do list for all my daily goals, but then I also have an I did list. So I'm kind of able to track, okay, did I really do everything I said I was doing? So that's been helpful for me so far.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of us get caught in that like idea list and then like actual, are we executing or implementing what the ideas were? And I feel like that's the biggest challenge. And that's one of my biggest challenges because I've got a great routine now when it comes to, before I go to bed, I know what my calendar looks like the next day. I have an 8 a.m. routine where I sort of had some of my administrative tasks lined up for me. One of the things that I struggle with is, I've got such a good routine when it comes to that administrative type things. I get caught up in a lot of that administrative sort of work. And that's working in your business, right? And for us as independent business owners, we have to realize we have to work in our business, which is great because we have to be good and proficient at what we do. But we have to work on our business. You know, there's sort of these three concentric um, circles I think about in real estate that have to line up in order to make the money. And you have to be good at the job of the realtor, the job of the real estate agent, contracts, compliance, customer service, all those things that go into being a really good realtor, real estate agent. But we have to lead generate, right? We have to fill that sales pipeline up. And that's like, whether we like it or not, we've got to, we wake up unemployed almost every day, right? We've got to get on that hamster wheel, whatever that looks like. Hopefully we got systems in place so that it kind of starts churning automatically, but it's up to us to generate those leads and that sales pipeline somehow, some way. It looks very different for a lot of different agents. You have to figure out, where your passion lies, what niche that you want to work, something that's not going to stretch your rubber band to the point where it breaks. But you got to really figure out and be honest with yourself. I want to come from contribution. I want to be of value. I want to help people. This particular demographic, in particular, is something I'm super passionate about. And really, that's where you start drilling down on your lead generation models and your strategic action plans. And then it comes back to me for the calendar. Like, it has to be, I've got to have it on the calendar, and I've got to implement whatever those action steps are that I've already planned out. Because I can do, all the planning I want, but if I'm not implementing those activities or doing those activities, then the results aren't going to show up. And the key is, you can't just do it for 1, 2, 3 weeks. It has to be done consistently. Like every week, you have to do those activities, which are going to generate and build your business. And that's where I think, we can lean into either systems or people, accountability partners, cadence of accountability. If you're talking about like 4 disciplines of execution, I think in this book, they talk a lot about, when it comes to the goal setting theory, the feedback loop, and having some feedback on the activities that you're doing, some real intel on what's working, what's not working. And kind of that, I think that human element to the feedback loop is important when it comes to goal setting. So like I said, in our minds, I think if we're using this time and reading this book to really get a good plan in place to achieve whatever goal it is. And when we're talking about that, part of that grit and intestinal fortitude is to have, what's your big why? What's your North Star? What are you really trying to achieve? That helps you, stay on task, stay motivated. You can come back to that in times when you're feeling a little depleted. Maybe your energy's drained a little bit. You can kind of reframe why you're doing what you're doing. And hopefully your big why is big enough that it energizes you. But that's
I think that's why, Greg, I'm looking forward to this. Whereas this particular author, I felt in chapter 1 or 2 in some situations, and I may be wrong, but I felt that she was a bit anti-man, actually used mansplaining in her verbiage. I had a little bit of trouble just getting through that to the good stuff that I'm looking forward to. But I come from a history of that, almost 20 years in the business with multiple top coaches in the country, of how you work your goals backwards, and starting in a very cold, here's a number. What is your number? And now let's break that down. How many calls does that mean? How many door knocks? How many listing appointments? That over almost 20 years can really burn somebody out. And I am at a point in my life that I don't have to do that, but I love what I do, and I love taking care of people. So to find the gems in this book of this female bringing in and all ages, she actually even mentioned middle-aged women, where they stand with what's my purpose, you know what I mean, as their families are evolving. And I'm looking forward to creating goals that bring a little bit more life balance, as I'm a new grandmother, and or my routine starts in the gym. in the morning, and I realize, and this is embarrassing to say, some people may take this for granted, that I have 3 to 5 really intensive networks that I have built through my my hobbies and things that I enjoy. And that is where I'm focused on building through relational and the things that I enjoy. And I can see Shadra smiling and nodding. Yeah, like, so that's what I'm hoping that this kind of does, that it gives me a little more enlightenment of something a little bit different than, putting in your numbers, working it backwards. And I just want to stab myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was super happy to see it. Definitely came from a different sort of paradigm, a different perspective than the things that I'm used to, which I agree with you. Yeah. And I know like we had a sales call yesterday and we talked about like, if you can find something, like if you're passionate about animals or pets, there's a way to build your business around just something like that, right? Like you can build out a network of people that are dog lovers, sponsor events around like the SPCA, dog events, dog parks, all things related to whatever you're passionate about. Build that network like you were talking about of people that have shared interests that you do. Maybe $100 of every real estate transaction that you do goes to some sort of rescue shelter or something like that. So now you're tying in some community outreach to what you're passionate about in your business. And I think if you can kind of build a business that ties all those things in together, it's a lot more sustainable than, like you said, just, all right, I need to make $200,000 next year. And in order to do that, I've got to make, 50 cold calls or, a week and door knock, so many things like that. It's been my experience that burns people out in the short term. Sure, you can go kill it for a little while, but for a sustainable business plan, I've seen people burn out of it. Where I have seen people kind of create a big sustainable business is where they start becoming passionate about things. And the beauty of real estate is it's super flexible. There are all kinds of real estate models out there, real estate agents out there. There's part-time agents out there, dual career agents out there, agents that are solely focused on helping military personnel, PCS, whatever it might be, luxury homes. We have a lot of waterfront homes around here in Maryland where we work, people that are, tied into the boating community, whatever it might be. You can create a business model around what you're passionate about and what you think you're going to be, engaged in. So yeah, I think it's great. And, we also have to be careful of, like, maybe you said it, Jeannie, but in the book, I think she talks about some of those toxic influences that come in from whether they're out marketing different models or just in general, like you said, sort of this maybe way traditionally or historically we look at goal setting and achieving certain goals. So this definitely is a little outside of the box on some of the things that it talks about, which is good. I like it a lot.
Can I just add something here, going back to what Jeannie said? This might help some people. I was a little disappointed in the first and second chapter because I thought, oh Lord, here we go. We're blaming men. And I'm older probably than everybody here. And my thought is, don't look back, whether you're a man or you're a woman, do it your way. Don't look back and say, well, I was discriminated and didn't work. And this one was head of a company and I wasn't, blah, blah, blah. No, because you're already having a defeatist attitude. So the other thing I found, and just basically saying, do it your way. It's endless the way we can do our own business and not have to, look for reasons why we're not. The second thing, that this is a practical thing. I found when I was going through the first chapter and I thought, oh, this is a slow slog here. I accompany it with the audiobook. And I found that made it easier to read and made more sense. So, but chapter 3 is much better. So if anybody, is struggling a little bit, no, one, it gets better. And number 2, the audiobook is $10. And to me, it was worth it because then I'm not stumbling over the words. It just flows better when somebody is reading it and I'm going along with them. And yeah, that's basically what I have to say.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
I appreciate that. I agree with you, and it definitely picks up sort of in the third chapter when she starts getting into the meat and potatoes about some of the goal setting that she's talking about, or and the foundational aspects of it. And yeah, and I felt that sort of paradigm. I think she even talks about like bearded men in the book is like, I fit that profile.
Thanks,
That's
Marie.
dangerous.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
no,
speaking up. I
Congrats.
wondered if I was alone in that
yeah.
spirit of
Jeannie,
offense.
and also congratulations on your new grandchild.
Ah, thank you.
You're a beautiful grandmother. So congratulations. And anybody else who's got good news, we're all for you. The other thing I'm excited about is, I'm new to JPAR, and I love the thought and Greg taking the action to meet more people within our brokerage and, to have colleagues, that maybe we can, call and say, hey, what do you think? How would you handle this? Blah, 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 blah. Because we're a family, this brokerage is a family. I felt that from day one. And I'm really excited to be here. So, thank you, Greg, for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we've got JPAR guests and people from other brokerages on the call too. So across, the thing I like to do with these trainings, and it's, broker agnostic too, and just want to help people reach their goals, whatever business model, honestly, whatever brokerage they're in, wherever they're from. I think it's better, when the more people you help obtain their goals, the better or more likely you are to get yours. So I think, I always love business planning and goal setting. So like I said, this time of year, I feel it. It's a great time to hit the reset button if you are feeling a little burnt out, kind of like Jeannie was talking about. And in the book, it talks about the difference between those intrinsic goals and external goals. And intrinsic goals are driven by internal motivations, such as personal values, passions, sense of purpose. So I think for the most part, that sort of remains the same, right? Like when you figure out what your intrinsic goals are within your business model, that's kind of going to remain the same. It's those external extrinsic goals, the productivity goals, that may change from time to time, or you may switch things up so that you don't get burnt out, because those are more production related and productivity type goals. And those can be reset, on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, semi-annually, annually. So that's where we just have to really wrap our head around when we're putting together this business model. And I think you have a business plan and a business model, and that's one thing. And then you have a strategic action plan that's built off of that business model. And that is sort of a fluid document, a fluid plan. It can change on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. But it's really important. That's sort of where you may get into the numbers and the nuts and bolts of it. It lives kind of below what your big why and your North Star and your big business plan might be. But that's where you can kind of course correct. And that just kind of keeps you on task. And that's where you really have to involve the calendar and maybe some sort of sense of cadence of accountability, whether it's a person or some system that you have, knowing that you have some tasks or activities that have to be done on a weekly basis. It should be on your calendar, your time blocking, you're protecting that time. And then week to week, you want to check in and those have to be your own goals, right? We have to set our own goals. And then the accountability portion of it is just holding you accountable to what your own goals would have been or are. And then you have to check in on yourself or have someone check in with you to make sure that you did the activities that you said you were going to do. Because we can get caught up in this sort of preparing to get ready, sort of paralysis by analysis. But on some level, we want to make sure that we're taking those action steps and implementing whatever it is that we need to have done in order to achieve some of those goals. So again, I love once you sort of got past all of her why she's writing the book and the sort of the science behind it and who's to blame for some of the failures in the past and what's looking forward when you're talking about goal setting theory. I like when she gets into talking about the difference between the types of goals, setting stretch goals, challenging us to grow, the role of grit, emphasizing kind of grit. and we start talking about strategies to cultivate grit, including fostering optimism and developing a growth mindset. I think there's a book by Carol Dweck called Growth Mindset, which is a really good book as well. And when we talk about reframing, the lens that we view things from, when we start to reframe challenges or obstacles into opportunities, it helps us really get past that hurdle. There's a Stoic principle, the obstacle is the way. And when you think about that, and when we really embrace it, things do start to change. If there's something that you feel is holding you back and you can kind of change that mindset around it, it's very beneficial. So some of the other notes that I have down here, again, I think it's, I don't want to sort of knock her, but she talks about maybe like envisioning things or vision boards not being, there's a science behind it, and some of the SMART goals may not be a science, but I think so one of the things is it's how it's implemented. There's probably nothing wrong with having a vision board, or if you're going to have your goals or your SMART goals or whatever your goal is, you have that front and center as a reminder to keep you on task as well. There's one of the 4 disciplines of execution from the book 40X is keep a compelling scoreboard. And half the reason they have you keep a compelling scoreboard because it's a visual reminder of what your goal is, whether you're winning or losing. And it just helps you stay on task, because, we live in a world of distractions, whether it's social media, it could be family, other things going on. When you're an independent contractor and no one's, you don't have a manager sitting above you telling you exactly what needs to be done every day, and you're self-driven, you need all the help you can internally, externally, to stay on task for what those goals are. So I don't sort of belittle any type of visual aid or anything that anybody uses to kind of achieve that. Yeah, and then she goes into talking about goal setting theory, making sure that there's clarity. The goals should be challenging yet attainable within GST. The commitment to those, the feedback loop that we talk about. She talks about feedback in the way that, if you're familiar with the 4 disciplines execution, they talk about cadence of accountability, and then task complexity within the goal setting theory is if your task is super complex, break it down into bite-sized pieces or segment it, and it makes it easier to wrap your head around and get done. Again, yeah, it's just for me, the first part is the science and psychology of goal setting. That was a little bit of a harder part to get through, but then she gets into the tools, the foundation, and the framework around goal setting and her principles and the resources. That starts to get into a little bit easier of a read. And then towards the end of this, we have 5 sessions. We'll break off and we'll make sure that we're actually setting a goal and a strat plan, and that everyone has an action plan in place to execute it. So feel free to reach out to anybody on the call or anyone within your sphere that's going to help hold you accountable to as you build out these goals. But any other questions or comments as we kind of move through it?
So Frank, I was gonna just, if I could interject for a second, I know that we all have like different ways of thinking, and sometimes I know for me in particular is I'm a very disciplined person, so I can work by a schedule, but my issue is I think that that's safe for me. So in my goals, I don't necessarily what's the right way to say it? Like my problem is stepping outside the box, outside off of the things that are on my normal routine, right? Like Jeannie, I think we're in the same class in the morning. I think that I see you in Solid Core. So like I am there every single morning at 8 a.m. and I'm a very patterned. I'm a very regimented person. So it's interesting in a lot of the goal setting books, and they talk about, and I know you've mentioned like working by a calendar and, you know, the disciplines that go with it. And I think like for me in particular, it's maybe not the discipline as much as it is learning to step outside of the box.
Yeah.
And so for my personal goals, it's being able to maybe see things differently. I also don't set monetary goals. I live a certain lifestyle and I set my goals to maintain that. Like I like to travel a lot and all of that. So for me, when I work my goals, or when I set, like, you know, I've started like setting the things on my calendar for 2025, and I look at it based on lifestyle, what I want in my lifestyle, but also I am very much in my comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
love my little comfort zone. And so I guess that would be where you talk about stretch goals.
yeah, stretch goals and the feedback loop too, right? I'm glad you brought that up because we, you know, different personality types do things differently, right? Like you can, yeah, if you're a very disciplined person and then you know, that time on task kind of thing is not going to be your problem. It might be where you, like you said, getting outside of, you know, outside of the box a little bit, stretching yourself, whether it's a stretch goal or from different activities. But that feedback loop, I think, can help you there quite a bit. I mean, anecdotally, I can kind of give you an example of when I was a chef for Marriott, and we did these things, and we did state dinners, and you know, did a state dinner for Madeleine Albright. I was part of the Wye River Peace Accords and stuff. I don't say that to brag. It was just like we did some high level, like menu planning and events. And when we would do menu planning, we would have several menu planning is leading up to an event. We would have the event, but one of the biggest things that we utilized and did to get better was we had, you know, post-event sort of debriefs like the military would do, and we would sort of debrief on how the event, what worked, what didn't work, how we're going to get better on the next one, and that was really intrinsically part of our process. And then the things that didn't work, obviously we changed and course corrected and were flexible with. The things that did work, we figured out how we could get better at them and implement them on a more regular basis, or even get, you know, refine them a little bit more. So maybe that kind of thing, I think where you benefit from sort of this goal setting thing. And it's not just goal setting, right? It's the holistic approach to it. And that feedback loop is going to be very important for you. I know you guys are big on events and you have a couple of events coming up. So it's, you know, what worked as far as the planning stages of the event, what worked at the plant, you know, at the event itself, what worked on the event follow-up, because that's just as important as getting people to the events as what do you do post-event follow-up, and how do you cultivate and maintain that rapport and relationship post-events. So that kind of thing is probably, I think, maybe where you'll benefit for it most, is getting a little bit more robust on sort of that feedback loop, and not necessarily we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. Sounds like you're a very disciplined person and you're not going to have issues with that. It's more or less how you kind of maybe expand or broaden your bandwidth when it comes to working around those activities or events.
Right. Thanks.
Anybody else have any ahas, questions, comments?
I have a question about learning goals.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly, and if I just want some clarity. So if I have a goal, and I'm just going to be hypothetical here, of getting to better shape. My
Yeah.
learning goal would be how I need to learn how exactly to get to that goal. In other words, I need to learn what activities that would be best suited for myself to get me to, let's say, lose 10 pounds or whatever the case may be. Is that correct? Is that what a learning goal is? It's a goal that you need to kind of capture and learn in order to get to your ultimate goal, or am I wrong in this thinking?
Well, I'm not going to say you're wrong or right, but what I'm going to say is I'm going to tell you what my interpretation of it is, right? Because you have some I don't know why I'm struggling so hard with that word, some external or extrinsic goals, right? And those are reward based, like we're avoiding punishment, reward based, like I need to get to a certain, whether I need to run a certain amount of time in a half marathon or a 10K, or I need to get to a certain weight or lift a certain amount of weights. Those are sort of productivity goals, right? For me, a learning based goal around that, which would be in lockstep with that, if you were looking to get in shape, would be like maybe take a nutrition class or a class on healthy cooking or something to that effect, where, you know, if caloric intake is important or healthy eating habits is more important, if you expand your knowledge base or your bandwidth around nutrition, healthy cooking, different cooking styles that can help feed what some of those extrinsic goals are, I think that helps you grow and become a better person and helps you achieve those productivity goals, so to speak, easier. Does that make sense?
Yes, I thought that's kind of what I was thinking, but I was questioning myself. So where is this solid core at? I see Janine.
It's
What's
at the
that?
shopping center with the Amish market.
Yeah, okay, so I'll introduce myself, I guess, with that.
Yeah.
I'm a owner of a J Par franchise in PA, so I'm a little further out than you.
Where in PA are you?
We're in Easton. It's between, I would say, Allentown and New York City, like right on the cusp of New Jersey.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
I grew up in southwest of Philadelphia. That's why I
Okay.
asked. Mhm.
Okay. Whereabouts exactly?
I went to Unionville, so close to, you might see Kennett Square off the highway. Longwood Gardens is a
Yeah.
marker.
I actually
So,
went to college down that way, so that's why I was asking.
well, yeah. So, but there might be a solid core near you.
Okay. Well, I'm actually into Pilates right now.
Doris, you need to introduce yourself now because I can't see your face.
Where does she go?
I thought I did it. Ta-da! Yeah, and you
Oh, it's
will
going to be
love,
so much more fun now.
and you will love Solid Core. I'm sure if there's one in Pennsylvania, because it's like I think it's addictive. It's the best workout, and I teach
It's
yoga.
doable.
And
Nice.
so it's a great mesh.
Is it yoga based or?
It's like
No, it's
Pilates.
It
Mhm.
is like okay, because I
Yeah.
do Pilates currently.
Yeah. What I like about the room's dark. So not looking at people. People aren't looking at you.
That is a plus.
It is. Especially when you're first getting into adding a new routine. Like Doris said, it's addictive. But you really need to stick to it and do it enough so that you start to see results. So you stay into it, just like any type of goal. I'm sure Greg can make the crossover, the bridge right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But, you know, results are important, right? I mean, we have human nature.
I think for me to take your clarification, Daveen, on learning-based goals, this year I joined 2 committees. So to learn a little bit, plug in a little bit more, and I tried to choose things that I was interested in. Try to be more of it and in it, in something that would not tax me too much, to threaten the balance that I know Doris and I understand, but also feel like I'm growing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm actually looking at a cooking class to learn just healthy cooking habits and
That's awesome.
yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Awesome. No, thank you for sharing. Well, we will I'll send out some collateral on the emails for some of I've got some stuff on GST and the extrinsic purpose driven and reward driven goals. I'll send that out on a follow-up email with the recording from today. And next week January 16th, we'll talk about the bridge methodology a little bit, get into that, and get into chapters, I guess, 3 and 4, growth mindset and authenticity. So that'd be great. Just keep reading and think about, as we kind of go through the journey here, what your goals are, what your learning objective goals are, what your productivity goals are. If you need help codifying any of that, let me know. Hopefully you have, thanks, Doris. Hopefully you have an accountability partner when we get into the feedback loop too, that we can bounce ideas off of. So again, if there's nothing else, I'm going to thank everyone. I'm going to give some time back, keep this one to about 45 minutes. And thank you guys very much. And look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Thank you, Greg.
See you guys. Take care.